Here's Hood at the top. Rolls off Gobert to an open side pick and roll. Weaves in the lane, puts up the little floater and scores it. That is a big-time play because Rodney's getting in the lane. He's holding a right-hand dribble, keeps the defender on his backside. He's in the paint. He virtually comes to a stop and then flashes it up with a left hand and scores it.
Rodney's been good. We'll talk about Hood being good. Plus, we'll do the PAAC Monday. Follow that up with a look at the NBA 5. It's all coming up on today's edition of Tip Off, a Monday, March 23rd edition. In fact, it is Tip Off. Pow! How is everybody doing today? Glad to have you with us. Thanks for joining me for a cup of coffee in the morning or whenever it is you might be tuning in. And maybe you're having Diet Coke. But whatever it is, thanks for taking the time to jump aboard and be a part of the program. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA Insider. You can follow me on Facebook at Utah Jazz. You can follow me on Facebook at David Locke. You can follow me at as well as on Locked On Sports. If you're on Twitter, it's at Locked On Sports. If you're on the Google Plus, we have a really good Locked On Sports Google Plus community. There's a fun event coming up here in the beginning of April. That's the Jazz yearly fundraising event that's called Leap and Leaners Low Tops, and it is all the proceeds of the event go to the Miller charities, and it's a little, it's an open auction with incredible NBA memorabilia as well as other items, often connected with something in the Miller world. So movie stuff, bees stuff, you can buy the chance to throw out the first pitch. Then there's some really other nice, elegant items, and then there's usually a really cool live auction that goes on. More importantly, all the Jazz coaches and players are there for an evening of autographs, funds, photos. They have half the court set up, so everyone's in their tennis shoes and in their nice clothes. And it's really a cool event, and there's a really nicely high-level, well-done kind of open buffet for your food. And you get a chance to interact with just about every player. Well, really every player. My daughter goes. It's her favorite day of the year. And she loves it. Comes home with every autograph. She has shooting contests with every player. It's Thursday, April 2nd. You can buy tickets to sit, like you could buy a table for your company, tax deductible. The Quinn Snyder table was purchased. The Rudy Gobert tables are even purchased, but you can, buy the Derek Favors. Now these aren't cheap. If your company would, probably that's why I say your company. Those are like $5,500. They're expensive. The individual ticket is $250, and if that's something you can swing, I would tell you it's really well worth it. Just an incredible event. So I'd strongly suggest it to you. Strongly consider it. It's coming up. It is on April 2nd. Starts at 6 o'clock. You can find the details at utahjazz.com. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Make sure you're aware of it, because I think it's something that if it's in your wheelhouse of something you can afford, which obviously not everybody can, then that's something that's well worth it, because the money is going to charity and the experience is once in a lifetime. So that's Leap and Leaners and Low Tops. Want to make sure you were aware of that. Let's get into it. Jazz play the Timberwolves tonight. We'll be there for you. But right now, let's get right into our NBA 5.
This is Rudy Gobert, and you are Locked On Jazz.
All right, every Monday, we like to give you a PAAC Monday, which is we take a look at my statistic, points above average created, and look at those players who, over the last 10 games, lead the league in PAAC. We'll screen share that with you on the for those of you that are on the Google with us. And Klay Thompson, who's only played 6 games, and usually I do a filter of 8 games. Today I do a filter of 6 games because there are so many players right now that are not playing every game. But the hottest player in the NBA, Klay Thompson, with a PAAC of 3.7. That means that in the case of Klay Thompson, he's using 18.7 scoring opportunities a game. In those 18.7 scoring opportunities, which are shots or trips to the free throw line, he's scoring 3.7 points above average. It's pretty high. Kyrie Irving, Chandler Parsons has clicked in. J.J. Redick, Goran Dragic is 5th for Miami. Dragic's 3rd best point guard in the entire league, according to PAAC. Anthony Morrow of Oklahoma City finally doing what we thought with Russell creating. Kyle Korver, who is this the key to everything going on with Atlanta. He didn't get a shot for 20 minutes against the Spurs last night or yesterday afternoon. Marcin Gortat, Mike Conley, Devin Harris having a very good year in Dallas. Matt Barnes. Devin Harris, interesting. He's not done yet. And he's really added the 3, using 35% of his possessions. Usually Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James lead off that group of the top PAAC guys in the last 10 games. Danny Green, Wilson Chandler, surprising Brandon Bass. And then if we want to flip the PAAC, Mike Conley trying to carry Memphis, by the way, is interesting because they really desperately need him. Let's flip the PAAC and go smallest. And Marcus Morris of Phoenix, the worst offensive player in the league over the last 10 games. Michael Carter-Williams has been dreadful. He's not shooting the 3 at all. He is going live. He's just it's really, Michael Carter-Williams is coming out now overall for the season as the single worst offensive player in the league. Jason Richardson, Philadelphia. Monte Ellis, and since Rajon Rondo has come to Dallas, Monte Ellis is way off. He's shooting 42% from the field and 30% from 3. And since February 1st, 38% from the field and 25% from 3. Dallas is in a world of trouble. Dallas's record since the Rondo trade is 25-19, the exact same as the Jazz in that time period. Detroit, Spencer Dinwiddie, Brian Roberts, Spencer Haas still not getting better. Ricky Rubio, who we may or may not see tonight, probably unlikely. Wayne Ellington, Dion Waiters in his rightful spot still. Jared Dudley, Luke Mbamute, Kelly Olynyk. No huge surprises in here. Tyler Ennis from Milwaukee. Milwaukee's 2 guards are here. Milwaukee, since trading Brandon Knight, now, and then unfortunately Trey gets in here. Since trading, and that'll be our PAAC Monday. And let me, now this lets me kind of veer into the next discussion point. I really like PAAC because I think there's some things that it tells you. One of which is if you take Brandon Knight, who is a plus, I think, 0.4 PAAC player. So his possessions, he's 0.4 above average. That's okay. It's good. I mean, anything above average is good. And you replace him with Michael Carter-Williams, who's a -3 PAAC. According to my numbers, and there's some work I still have to do on this, this is not completely – you could be costing yourself as many as 9 games in a season. Well, Milwaukee's lost 6 straight, and they're 4-13 since the trade deadline. You can start talking to me about length and defense and all these other items, but narrowing down the efficiency of an individual player and how he uses a possession often gives you a lot more than you realize. And as I've talked about numerous times, all the discussion about how one player changes from another player changes to another team and his production changes is often a lot of talk about nothing. It's not actually often that true. I mean, we can go start running through some of the guys that got traded right now, and you start to look at what their numbers are, contrasting to what their numbers were before the trade, and they're stunningly similar. And they've got 4 different players around him. I mean, it's a controversial point of view. It is refuted with some regularity, but I'm holding to it. Michael Carter-Williams, if you dig into his numbers or his advanced stats a little bit, his effective field goal percentage in Philadelphia was 40.6. His effective field goal percentage in Milwaukee is 41.1. It's not a big change there. His assist to turnover ratio is virtually the exact same. The only difference is he's really stopped shooting the 3. His possession usage is way different. It's actually become less efficient. You do the same thing with a bunch of guys that got traded on the deadline, and you find it. Enes Kanter, who is having this revival, and good for Enes, really, if you look into it, his numbers aren't dramatically different than what they were in Salt Lake. They're a bit better, no question. His effective field goal percentage is up 5 percentage points. That's a big difference. He's changed where he's shooting from, and they continue to get better, actually. Ennis is being used in a different fashion, and he's playing 3 more minutes per game, so he's scoring more. His rebounding's up. His per 48-minute numbers are even up. So Ennis kind of might flip it a little bit that he's more productive, and he's about as wide-ranging. Dion Waiters is the exact same. Brandon Knight, I believe, is very similar in Phoenix to what he was in Milwaukee. That wasn't really the point of what I was trying to do here, but you can walk through. Brandon Knight is actually, I was wrong on that. I looked at his Milwaukee versus Detroit numbers when I looked at that last night. Brandon Knight's season this year is the exact same now as it was similar to last year, 42.2 versus 42.6. But in Phoenix, he's only shooting 38%, and he was shooting 44%. So he's actually gotten less good, flipping to a team that's more offensive-minded. Now that refutes everything that we've ever been told to believe. And no. But it's interesting to see. I mean, the same thing when you took Brandon Wright and his 7 possessions, but PAAC +2 off Dallas, and put in Rajon Rondo, who's one of the worst PAAC players in the league. It's killed them. It sounds silly, but it's a pretty good way to look at things. As is the case with everything, it's not foolproof, which is what makes it very difficult. Cleveland yesterday, some interesting games last night. Cleveland just toyed with Milwaukee and did some interesting things where they went small without Kevin Love in the game and ran away with it, which is it's interesting. They had Tristan. There were 4. I know everybody else was watching March Madness, but there were 4 great early NBA games yesterday, and my kids actually were in Big Sky, Montana, at a ski race, so I had the house to myself, and I just dug in. But they're playing Tristan Thompson in the middle with James as the power forward, J.R. Smith, Amon Shumpert, and Dellavedova was running the point. They went on a 24-9 run in that game. Obviously, with Kyrie, that's still pretty potent. LeBron, by the way, is really still killing it, and probably is the MVP of this league. Steph Curry will win it, but LeBron is probably worthy of the MVP again. Russell Westbrook last night, his 10th triple-double. The Thunder, without Ibaka, without Durant, win it over Miami, going away 93-75. They have a 3-game advantage over the Pelicans in Phoenix. This thing's over. And to the credit of, I've dismissed them as a championship contender now without the services of those 2 guys and without Durant. But to be fair, in the last 23 games, they're the number 2 offense during the stretch. If you go back to the start of February, they're 17-6. They're tied for the second best record in the league with Cleveland, trailing only Golden State since February 1st, the Thunder are. And they've only had Durant for 5 of those games. They're the number 2 offense in the league during that stretch, just a 10th behind Cleveland. And the league's 4th best net rating, so efficiency, trailing only the Golden State Warriors, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then this is the one that we all have to take a moment and pause about, the San Antonio Spurs. And the Spurs dismantled, absolutely dismantled the Atlanta Hawks last night. It was incredible what they did. That's as good as the Spurs have looked all year. That's the same team that lost to the Knicks earlier this week. The performance by the Spurs yesterday is the one that makes you think to yourself that they're back. Now, can they do that consistently, and can they do that over a 7-game period of time? We'll see. That is your NBA 5.
This is Rodney Hood, and you are locked on Jazz.
Thank you, Rodney. Rodney's really playing well and doing neat things on the basketball floor. His ability to feel the floor, control where he wants to go, play at his own pace, and get some of the looks that he wants it's stunning for a rookie. I didn't see where David Thorpe put him on the rookie ladder this week. I was going to check that out, and I was giving Thorpe, who I would call a good friend via the Twitter. I don't know him particularly well. We have dinner every time we're in the same town together during, at NBA media rooms and things like that. But what I really liked about Rodney's performance against Golden State was he doesn't have the three going right now. He's 1 of 9 for 3, and he still found a way to get things going. In his 6 starts, he's averaging 14 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists since the All-Star break, shooting 53% from the field and 52% from 3. Pretty stunning. Post All-Star break, he's at 11 points, 48-45 as his shooting percentages. Some interesting things have happened here. He's found a little success in the paint area non-restricted. Before he gets in the restricted area, it's really the area where Trey's got to find success and can't. Rodney, just with that length and some of that body control, can find it. Contrasting, both Trey and Rodney are not finishing at the rim yet. Both are at about 47%. Rodney for the season is at 57, but since the All-Star break, he's at 48. But Rodney's at 51% in the paint non-restricted area. Mid-range, Rodney's at 50%. And above the break 3, which is a hard shot, and it's the shooting percentage on that is far less than the corner 3. He's the exact opposite. Rodney Hood is a 49% above the break 3-point shooter and a 31% for the corner 3. That's since the All-Star break. He's 42 for the season. But the above the break 3 shooter is actually more valuable because it's a little harder to find. And in addition, it stretches the floor a little differently. It allows you to do some more things as a coach. So if, in fact, that's for real, that's a big deal. Your big guy, actually, your Boris Diaw, you really like him to be high quadrant above the break because it allows for just some different spacing things. Since over the last 10 games, PAAC Monday, Gordon Hayward is a 2, by far the best on the team. Gordon's going to the the last 10 games. Gordon Hayward, who is questionable for tonight, by the way, with a shoulder strain. Gordon Hayward is going to the free throw line 18% of his possessions. Just incredible. And what's really interesting about Gordon, a 2-pack, by the way, is very, very good. He's hitting the 3. He's going to the free throw line 18% of his possessions and shooting the 3 21% of his possessions. Love that number. Rodney Hood is not going to the line at all. That will be something we got to keep an eye on. He's going to line 4.5% of his possessions, which is low. It's not as low as Dante's 1%, but it's low. The Rodney PAAC is 0.8, Favors is 0.5, Rudy is 0.1. Everybody else has slipped into the negative over the last 10 games. So offensively, really struggling. Trevor's negative 0.2, Dante's negative 0.2, Joe Ingles is negative 0.8, Elijah's negative 1.1. Elijah's turning the ball over 28% of the possessions he uses. I just thought I'd hold on that for a second and take a sip of water. Trey Burke, minus 0.2. Actually, minus 2.2 for Trey right now. He's kind of been up and down. The last 3 games, he's really been pretty good. So this is the last 10 and includes some of that slump. Last 3 games, Trey has really, frankly, bailed the Jazz out while Dante has not scored. And, Dante's at a point right now when he's tired. And I talked to him the other day about it. He's exhausted, and his usefulness is very low right now. He's trying defensively, but offensively, he's so, the Warriors just didn't guard him or Gobert to open the game the other night. Trey, last 3 games, is 19 of 35 and 11 his last 22 from 3. Good to see. I feel like Trey's making some strides in some little fashions. The Warriors opened the game the other night. Monte Ellis just didn't guard. Actually, Monte Ellis. Steph Curry just did not guard Dante Exum at all. And Andrew Bogut didn't guard Rudy Gobert at all. And what Andrew Bogut did is probably a little disconcerting. Bogut stayed on the top of the circle of the restricted area while Gobert was out at the top of the key. And that's going to be a tough one. I was going to look at this last night. I'm actually going to do it live with you right now. I was very curious of what our offensive rating and defensive rating is since the All-Star break with various players on the floor. Now, as I've always said about this statistic, all the way back to when Favors and Cantor were coming off the bench and everyone was in love with this stat. It's interesting using this one. This more than maybe any other statistic that I use, I have found people subjectively select it whenever they want to and then dismiss it when they don't. There is a lot of noise and there is a lot of problem to this because you have the difference between playing starters versus playing bench guys, the difference between playing long minutes and short minutes, and so some things can get skewed, and particularly over short time periods, they can get skewed. But I was going to look at the Jazz post All-Star break and what the impact of player we are with certain players on and off the floor. You know, all season long, the general trend is when Rudy's on the floor, we're better defensively, and when Gordon's on the floor, we're better offensively, and when either of them are off, we've really struggled. It's worth taking a look at. Since the All-Star break, it's interesting. Dante's been a huge the offensive rating has actually been much better when Dante's on the floor, 105.1 to 96.6 when Dante's on the floor. I'm looking at this right now for the first time. Favors is a 102.5 offensively. When he's off the floor, we're having a hard time scoring, 96.6. Gordon, it's the same we've been all year long. What about Rudy, which is where this got me? Rudy, right now, when he's on the floor, and this is interesting because Dante is so good and they're on the floor a lot together. When Rudy's on the floor, our offensive rating is 97.8, and when Rudy's off the floor, our offensive rating is a 108.0. Frankly, in the 16 games, and this is stunning, in the 16 games since the All-Star break, we are dramatically better with Rudy off the floor than on the floor. Now, he's played 546 minutes, and when he's off the floor, he's played 222. We're a plus 19 per 100 possessions with Rudy off the floor right now. Now, that also could be that Quinn picks the matchup for Rudy to be off the floor, and then the minute we're in trouble, he brings Rudy back on. The nice thing is that we are positive with every player on the floor since the All-Star break. That's really an important number to look at. We're positive 5.8 with Rudy on the floor. We're positive 4.8 with Trey. Those are the two lowest. Joe Ingles, we're positive 6.2. We're positive 17 with Dante, positive 14 with Favors, positive 12 with Hayward. Elijah's defensive influence is not as big. Trey, the defense is close. The offense is less good. Rudy, the offense is considerably less good. The defense is actually better when Rudy's off the floor, which is kind of wacky. You kind of know better with your eye check, but that was worth taking a note at. There is a significant issue here of how we're going to score with Rudy on the floor, and that's going to have to develop over time and figure out how to use him correctly. That is tip off today. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.